Hey guys, welcome to StarLight Wisdom. I am your host, Julie. Thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, check out our channel. I'm on YouTube, Indigenous, and I'm also on Facebook, Starseed. So please do check out them before I introduce our guest and bring her on. I say welcome, joining us,
Thank
and
you.
yeah. And thank you for being here. And Raquel is going to talk about her experience with Standing Rock and other things, talk about Indigenous culture, ancestry, things of that nature, guys. So it's going to be a great show. We're going to be on for an hour, so we'll finish about 10:30. And I'd just like to hand it to Raquel, guys, because I have a bit of feedback, so I'm not really going to speak through the show. Leave it in the hands of our guests. All I am is shuffle cards for the audience, and I'll just be holding up the cards to the name and say the name who they're for. All right, guys, if you give permission, I'll go ahead.
You're going to be doing that while I'm talking, or?
Of course, while you're talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to try not to pay attention then because it'll throw me. If I'm in the groove of a story and my attention's taken off, I'm going to forget the groove of the story.
So. Okay, don't worry about it. I can do it another time. It's fine.
Okay, greetings everyone. My spirit name is Three Feathers. My given name is Raquel Trevino. I prefer Three Feathers. I kind of outgrew Raquel. Let's see, where do we begin? We're going to talk a little bit about Standing Rock, or do we want to know who I am first? Let me tell you my experience with Standing Rock. I had just returned from an 11-month journey with my Alaskan Malamute, Kaya, brought wolf medicine. And we got back to the Seattle area and she got sick and I had to put her down. And probably 2 days maybe had gone by when Standing Rock came into my awareness. And the injustices that I saw on the videos, for anybody that doesn't know what Standing Rock is, there is a Standing Rock documentary. There's actually a YouTube mix of songs that have been written and composed about Standing Rock and lots of videography from there. It was a protest against the North Dakota Access Pipeline in North Dakota on Lakota Sioux territory and Standing Rock Reservation. It started on April 20. Oh, geez, I'm not positive. I know it ended on February 22nd. I want to say it started on April 22nd, but I'm not positive. It started in April of 2015. Took the world by storm. It was started by Jaslyn Charger, I believe, one of the youth. Was protecting the water. And the youth are what started it. And I've got to say, the Native American youth, Indigenous youth, are very empowered. And they're very revered because they don't have all of this stories and traumas from our lifetime. People have traumas from the day they're born. They can, yes. I mean, they don't have all of the stories, all the programming, all of the garbage that we tend to have as adults and we're shedding off now. So the children are very close to the truth. And so they're listened to, revered, and honored in the Indigenous traditions. And the youth are what started Standing Rock. And Standing Rock changed the world. Over 500 tribes came to show their support, signed statements of solidarity. People from all over the world came. Hundreds of thousands of people came through there. It lasted until February of 2016. I got there, and of course I should say, I heard the call. I had to go. Many people that were there weren't entirely sure why they were there, but they just had to be there. They were called. And Kaya had died, but my car needed a catalytic converter. And so I thought, how am I going to go? There's no way I can go. And of course, Spirit paved the way. I ended up riding in a VW Westphalia van from Seattle to Standing Rock with 4 other strangers. And we drove straight through and didn't sleep, and so it was a little. Well, we tried to take naps in the center on the floor and a bunch of cushions and a ball, and I can't really sleep that way. So it was a long trip, but we got there and we were greeted. Probably a quarter mile up the road, there was just cars waiting to get in, and we were greeted by tribal police, and they said, "Thank you for being here. Thank you for expressing your right to speak up. Thank you for standing with us." And then when you get to the gates, they had security there, and there's signs that say no weapons, no drugs, no alcohol, and check the cars and the people and make sure everything's good. And when you got there, it was a different vibration. You felt it before you got there. And it literally was 5D. It was unity consciousness, which is absolutely amazing because everybody was a brother or a sister, or an auntie or an uncle, or a grandmother and a grandfather. And the elders were honored, and they were respected, and they were served. And we were always reminded that we were there for a common purpose. Our purpose was to protect the water. Not to protest the pipeline, but to protect the water. So these were not protesters. They were water protectors. They came at peace and were praying. Our weapons were drums and feathers and prayers. And the prayers are what carry the power, right? In Standing Rock, I remember being there just when I got there on a Wednesday night. Got there right after treaty camp fell. Let me see if I can remember this correctly. I got there the day before treaty camp fell. At night. Drums, always singing. Thousands of people. Hundreds of teepees. Cars, campers, RVs, tents. Horses. Dogs running free. Horses running free. And everywhere you look, people were greeting each other, hugging each other, thanking each other for being there. I got there and I thanked people for coming. My first experience, of course, was the next day when treaty camp fell. And it rippled through the camps. There was those at the front lines, and there was many back in the camps, always working. And I remember being with a friend, and we drove across, not the bridge where they had the treaty camp, where that fell. Let me explain what the treaty camp was really quick in case people don't understand. The United States and, of course, the Native American nations, First Nations, had treaties saying that they could continue to hunt and have ceremony on their traditional lands. Even though their reservation was like this size, the traditional lands were much bigger. So this pipeline was going through their traditional lands, literally right above their reservation. The pipeline was to go under the river. And if that were to leak, it would not only poison their water, but poison the water for 18 million people downstream. So initially, the pipeline was supposed to go above Bismarck, North Dakota. And the mostly Caucasian population of Bismarck said, well, what if that leaks? It's going to poison our water. We don't want it here. And so they moved it just half a mile downstream, which was, of course, right above the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation. So that is why it was a big deal. And that's one of our major water sources, the Missouri River into the Mississippi River. And that's why we were there protecting the water for everyone. So the Standing Rock Sioux tribe, after months and months and months of trying to battle this in court and trying to do everything the colonialized way, set up treaty camp. They claimed eminent domain, saying this is our land, and here we are, and we're not moving. And I think if any other nation would have done that, there would have been a war. But they did it with drums and prayers. They did it in a sacred way. They did it in a good way. Standing Rock, I like to say, was led by the youth, but was guided by the wisdom of the elders. It was guided by the spiritual leaders. And when Treaty Camp fell, it was like a wave, a ripple that went through the camp. And we went up on the bridge leading right into Standing Rock Reservation. And people were just coming from the front bridge, Breakwater Bridge, where the front line was and where Treaty Camp had set up their sacred tent and prayers. 142 people were arrested that day. And the police basically just made a line and kind of mowed the people down, sprayed them with pepper spray. I can't remember if they were using rubber bullets at that time or not. I think they probably were. I know my friend got arrested simply for turning her back to the police and shielding the grandmothers that were there praying. And she was arrested and charged with a felony of inciting a riot. So a lot of what was going on there, of course, was human rights violations, but they were lying to the public about what really happened, what people really did, and what the mood and the temperament there really was. And to my understanding, the only violence that was ever showed towards law enforcement, I think somebody threw a water bottle once, and they were corrected, and a snowball when it snowed. But so they had just mowed down Treaty Camp, and it had rippled through the camp what had happened, and that people were being arrested. This was the first mass arrest, where they had arrested a handful of people before for attaching themselves to the equipment, tractors, and that kind of thing. This was a massive show of strength on the law enforcement's part. And it was designed to really hurt the people and hurt the mood. So what happened, as we're going across, all these people are coming on the road, walking, and they're setting up a blockade on another one of the little side roads there. And they've got, like an old car blocking the road, and they've got a bunch of tree branches there blocking the road. And through all these people, and I'm there, and I'm just feeling all this energy, right? And I'm there with my rattle, like, whoa. And this white truck comes barreling over the grass because the people are in the road, and it comes over the hill, over the grass, and it's driving erratically. And there's this red car that comes chasing it. And another car, and people are running, and they're following these cars. And I said, what's going on? And somebody shouted, he's got a gun.
Ooh.
And that is not allowed. That was not allowed at the camp at all. No. And so all of the people were running, and the cars chasing. They got this white truck down by the water. He ran out of his truck, and he had, a long rifle, a long weapon. And he ran out into the river, and there was 5 or 6, I've got pictures of this, there was 5 or 6 Native brothers kind of in a semicircle, and the guy had the gun pointed down at the water. That's the only photograph that made it into, I think, the USA Today or the mainstream media, was somebody with a gun, but they forgot to say who it was. So these men are there talking him down and trying to take control of the situation and convince him this is not the way to go. We don't need weapons. In the meantime, somebody else was going through this guy's pickup truck. And before I knew it, got the pickup truck, drove it up to the blockade with the other car and the big branches and fallen trees. And he gets out and he starts jumping on the hood of the car, kicking in the windshield. And everybody's like, ah, and I'm like, what's going on? And they said, he's a DAPL worker. They found inside the car his registration and his DAPL ID, or his Energy Transfer Partner's ID. And so he was an infiltrator. He was a traitor. He brought a weapon onto the camps in order to soil what was happening there. And it just wasn't tolerated. There was a lot of anger. And, you know, emotions were running high because of what just happened. Their elders, the way that they were treated like animals, you know. And they set that truck on fire. Mm-hmm. Now that kind of violence is not sanctioned. It's not approved. It's not welcome. It wasn't intended. It's not part of the prayer plan. Mm-hmm. Especially because when they're burned, and we all know this, things are burned like foam and rubber. They're toxic to the environment. Mm-hmm. So after that, so it was an exciting day, let's say. And the police were threatening to raid the camps. And so we moved across the water. Me and my group personally moved across the water to the camp, to the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation at Rosebud Camp. And there I stayed for 7 weeks. And 3 showers. Now, I had already been on the road for a while, so I knew where to go to take a shower. But in Standing Rock, I didn't have a vehicle. But I did have my little burner stove and a pot of water, so I knew I knew how to take care of myself. Others had to learn. And I'll just say, so many people ended up getting rashes from baby wipes. You can't bathe in baby wipes, you guys. Soap and water. We don't need chemicals, right? So anything and everything that you could think of that you could need that would support the people was there. Everything from toothpaste and toothbrushes to the toiletries, to food, to wood, to clothing, to sleeping bags, tents, blankets, candles, incense, medicine, herbs. So many herbs were sent and donated from all over the world, you know, and it was such good medicine. So many good, beautiful things were happening there. And when you were at Standing Rock, you got to be who you truly were, because you didn't have all of these other anything around you. You were you, and you were there to help. You were there to stand with the Standing Rock Sioux and the water. And so people's gifts naturally came out. And likewise, if you had a skill set like construction, like electricity, like plumbing, like cooking, you were volunteering your skills for the camp. And the first day there, outside of the kitchen, the main kitchen at Rosebud Camp, this was late October, I remember seeing the dishwashing station, and it was, you know, set up with a table and crates and, you know, buckets and water, and it's, you know, little spigot. And I was just thinking how unsanitary it was. And my father, he was the dining room director for St. Vincent's Dining Room in Reno, Nevada for 25 years. He fed the homeless. He actually received the Mother Teresa Award, and he just passed this last November. So, he was a fanatic about clean and kitchens, right? And of course, this is a camp, like, you know, plywood and cook stoves and hanging waving lights and an army tent. And so this dishwashing station, you know, so there's no hot water. you could make hot water if you wanted, but just to wash your hands, this hand washing station. I was thinking how primitive, but basic and what just started. Anyway, somebody walked by and said, "Wow, look at all that's been accomplished."
Mm.
And it just stopped me in my tracks, and it changed my entire perspective. And I was like, holy cow. Look at this donation tent, all organized sometimes. All these things, people constantly working, the kitchen up and running, everything that was accomplished. And every day more and more was accomplished, and more was built, and more was made. And it was a city was being built, and it was. And many people said, I live here now. This is home. Why does it feel like home? Because everybody's family, everybody's greeted, everybody's smiled at, for the most part. And so there was a magic there. Anything that was needed, we needed showers, yeah? And I knew there was a community center not far away where people were going to take showers. And I had heard that, by 9 o'clock in the morning, the water was cold. And I said, oh, they need on-demand water heaters. And then I said that to somebody at the camp, and they said, oh, they're coming in 2 days. In 2 days, we'll have them. I'm like, wow. And then something else was needed. Let's, for example, say tomatoes. We need tomatoes. And then within 2 hours, tomatoes showed up. And then when you got really good at it, things showed up within, for me, it was 2 days, 2 hours, and then 2 minutes. And I've got to say one thing is, I had planned to go for 2 weeks. I took my own food, for the most part, my own spices, provisions to get me through for a couple of weeks. But the van left after 1 week, and I wasn't done. I hadn't even started doing what I was there to do. And so I had Himalayan salt is one of the medicines I carry. And I was running on low on salt, and I thought, oh, I'm going to have to go back to Seattle and load up on provisions, come back. That was the plan. And then a couple hours later, I was in the kitchen, and somebody said, hey, 3 feathers. There's this pink salt. We don't know what to do with it in the kitchen here. Do you want it? I was like, yes. And that's how my whole journey has been, is when you're walking your path, when you're walking the red road, you're walking the spiritual way. Anything that is provided, anything that is needed will be provided. And so there was a magic there. I'm trying to think of what story wants to come forth. I told the grasshopper story in the Divine Feminine, in the Chief. That was on Todd Medina's Soulology page, or Todd Medina's page, and that was my second story. That was last Saturday, I believe. So that was the part 2, where I'm wearing blue. The night after the guy with the gun, after Treaty Camp fell, the youth walked around the camps with a sign that said, youth-led silent prayer and march, tomorrow at noon. And they walked around from kitchen to kitchen, camp to camp, fire to fire, with this sign, and just stood in front of people and asked them to read it. They didn't say anything. It was all silent. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. But I had forgotten about it until the next morning, and I was outside doing my yoga or something, stretching, smoking, I don't know. And 2 by 2, they were walking through all the camps, again with these signs, and talking to anybody that was awake and outside. And they said, we'd like for you to come and support us. And I said, okay. what are the chances of getting arrested? Because for me, I wasn't in the position to be able to go down that road, to be arrested, to come back from court, to put up bail. I didn't have family that could get me out. I didn't have lawyer, legal support. And I was there to help in a different way. So everybody had their calling. Some people came just to cook. Some people came just to organize the clothes. So they asked me to come, and I said, what are the chances of getting arrested? And they said, none. We've spoken to the youth Indigenous, and I've got to say, the youth formed the International Indigenous Youth Council there at Standing Rock. And they formed their own camp. And they camped and slept together, and they held their own ceremonies, and they had their own healing, their own bonding, and they became their own family. And they were very strong and very revered and respected, and they always sought the guidance of the elders, as it should be. And so they said, we've already spoken with Morton County sheriffs. We told them what we're going to do. It's a silent prayer and march. We're going to march there. We're going to kneel on the bridge. We're going to pray. And then we're going to march back. And it's fine. And I said, okay, I'll be there. And then they left, going again from camp to camp. And I was thinking, okay, I've got to get ready. I'm doing my yoga, and I've got to pack my food. I've got to pack my water. I've got to pack my backpack. I've got to get my clothes. I've got to do this. And time goes on, and I just start hearing, go, go, go. And I'm, kind of like saying, I've got to pack my food. And it was like, go, go, go. And I'm just like putting on my moccasins, and I'm stuffing fur in there because it's cold, And I was like, you can eat afterwards. And I was like, I got to get water. There's water there. Go. And so I had to run. And I don't like running, and I had to run. And I grabbed my rattle, and I ran, and I ran all the way down Rosebud Camp. And then I rested there on the bridge. And then I ran all the way across the bridge, and I rested there on the bridge. And then I ran all the way to the sacred fire. And there's nobody hardly there. And I was like, where are the youth? And they said, oh, it's the 7 councils fire. So then I ran all the way over there. And I'm just like, why am I running, But I had to go. And these are in my moccasins. That was almost the last time I wore them, because I had already worn holes in them. I had already patched them with leather. And they were falling apart, but they were holding me well that day. And so I found the youth, and people were gathering, and they were in a circle, talking in a circle in the middle. And I kind of got in there, and I said, hi, my spirit name is Three Feathers. May I participate? And they said, yes. And I said, great. Where are the elders, or where's the elder that's helping? And he said, right over there. And I said, great. And so I ran over to the grandmother, and I said, hello, my spirit name is Three Feathers. My real name is Raquel. I'm here to serve. How may I help? And she said, okay, thank you. And she went on to greet the next person. And I was like, well, now what do I do? And so I just kind of moved off to the side, and I grounded and connected. And immediately I was just guided to start walking around the people. And I was there with my rattle, just walking around and walking around and walking around. And more people were coming. And slowly, 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 I'm walking around this whole thing. And it's growing and growing, and more people are coming. So I'm still walking around, still walking around, still. And then I finish. It seems to be done, and they're starting to gather, and I just turn towards the sun, and butterfly consciousness came. And butterfly is all about transformation, right? Mm-hmm. And so I did this dance, and then I was done, and I was walking back, and this girl, her name was Rachel, And my name is Raquel, and I've always been called Rachel and didn't like it, but I really liked her. And she said, oh my God, that was so beautiful. I'm so sorry I took a picture. And I said, it's okay. Send it to me. I never got. Sorry about that. And then somebody else offered me some water. So again, it was provided. So I had some water and a new friend and found our way into the circle. And they were coming around, the youth with the tobacco and the sage and the sacred water and the elder. And they were coming person by person, blessing and giving the tobacco for this group prayer. There's about 300 people there. I had no idea there was that many. It was about 300. And so we take the tobacco and they move on. And then something tells me to back out of the circle. And I take a few steps back and my body turns. And I see somebody else outside of the circle. It's a guy in a red jacket and a white snow cap that comes down with a ball on top. And I was just directed to him. And I turn my body away and it's turned back. And I turn my body away and it's turned back. And so it was definitely pointing me towards him. Something was off on me. And I'm standing there. I'm like doing this. It's like tobacco in my hand. And I'm just like doing this to him, right? And I poked him and he saw me. And then he turned and walked away around the circle where I couldn't see him. And I just thought, okay. And so I went and followed him. And to where he was stopped and I was stopped. And I poked him again. And he jumped and he looked. And he did this 3 times. And then finally he was leaving the circle. And I'm looking for security because I know something's up. And they're having another demonstration on the bridge on the front lines. And so all the security is also there. The Red Warriors are there. So it's funny, we had all these people here for the youth, and then we had that going on over there. And so as I'm following this guy, I'm finding, stray, big-looking warrior men. And I said, are you security? Said, no. Are you security? No. And I remember, and I'm going to show you, I've got this little Post-it note. This was a message from So'o. So'o means grandmother in Hopi. And this, I don't know if you can see that. If it's going to be, it's up to me / we. And this came into my awareness as I was preparing to go to Standing Rock. If it's going to be, it's up to me, we. And so I'm like, I need somebody to go approach this guy, and there's nobody there. And I heard, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And so I walked up to him and I said, hey, brother, come join us at the circle. What are you doing out here? And he goes, oh, I don't like to be in crowds. I'm just going to be here. And I go, come on, we need you. Come pray with us. Come get some tobacco and pray with us. We need you. And I was like, what are you doing here? What brought you here? And he said, I came here to buy a horse. I want to ride a horse on the front lines. And I'm like, okay. And it seemed a little strange to me. And he was native. He was young, probably early 20s, 19, 20 years old, all completely messed up teeth. And something wasn't right. And I said, well, come with us. We need you to pray. And so he's like, okay. And he turned and he walked away from me, kind of shoved his hands in his pockets, kind of like a teenager that got in trouble, got caught in the hall by the teacher. Was going back to class. And I thought, well, that's odd, because I was gesturing, come with us, come with me. And he took off. So I followed him. So we went back around the other way to the circle. And I had told him, go find where that smoke, that sage is coming from. That's where the tobacco is. And so he got there a little too late. They had already stopped. But he was standing there in the circle. And then I saw one of the brothers with the red bandana or on his arm or his head, I can't remember, and feather. And I said, "Are you security?" And he said, "Yeah." And I go, "You need to watch the guy on my 6 with the red jacket. Something's not right." He said, "Okay." And he gives him a hard look and walks by. And I was like, okay. So I go up to him again. If it's going to be, it's up to me. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go up to him and I said, "Hey, did you get some tobacco?" And he's like, "No, they missed. They already passed." And I said, "Give me your hand. I'll give you some tobacco." And I was like, "Give me your hand. I'll give you some." And so he opened up his right hand. And that told me that he wasn't a praying man, because we all had our tobacco in the left hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, other hand. He opens it, and I put it in there, and I close it, and then I touch him in the heart. And I said, "Thank you for being here. We need you. Thank you." He's like, "Okay." And then the march started, and the youth started. And so the youth, Philip, I'm trying to remember Philip's full name. I believe it was Philip that was holding the staff and the chanupa, which is a sacred pipe.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge responsibility and a huge honor to be a pipe carrier. So it was led by the youth, the elders with their pipes and drums and feathers right behind them, and then the rest of the people. But this kid in the red was right there on the flanks, up top, which I thought was a little odd, considering he didn't want to be anywhere near this group in the beginning, is what he told me. But my part was done. I had alerted security, and so my job, I then was going right in front of, alongside the youth, clearing and protecting the space. So what I was doing was removing any ill intentions, like that kid. Anybody that had ill intentions or negative energies that weren't there to serve the purpose and serve the youth and the water. And so when we moved from that spot, I went with them, and we walked through the camps up Flag Road, where all of these indigenous tribes that came to support or sent delegations, sent flags, and all the flags were planted along this road, and it was Flag Road. And so silently, hundreds marching, and we walked. As soon as we got to the corner, as soon as I got to the corner, right where at the border where you get out of the gates, no longer part of the camp, my hand opened by itself, and the tobacco went right there. And it was as if Spirit was saying, "I got this from here. We got this." And so then I was concentrating on the march and the prayer. And we got to the bridge right over the water, and there was the blockade with the great big, looks like chicken wires, razor wire. And we kneel and we pray. And I am right over the water. I'm right over the water with this rattle praying. And then 2 of the youth, one carrying the sacred water, the other with the chanupa and the staff, go on the other side of the blockade out of sight, along with somebody filming. And immediately, myself, I just got up. I was sitting, and I got up on my knees and just did this, like reaching over the blockade. And I noticed somebody a few rows up did the exact same thing. And I turned and I looked, and every here and there were people that had done the exact same thing. So it was really interesting how we were all moved to shield and protect and antenna, listen, view. And then after a few moments, and still in silence, but everybody's tense because they went on the other side and we're like, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And after a few moments, they came back. And Philip said to us, God, I hope it's Philip. I think I'm saying the right name. He said to us, we spoke to the officers on the other side of the blockade.
Mm-hmm.
And we told them that we were here praying for the water. And we were praying for them. And we were praying for the next 7 generations and for their children and grandchildren as well. And we offered them this holy water. And they were like, we're not taking anything from you. But one of the officers touched his hand to the water and touched his heart.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I am grateful, he said, to touch at least one. And so we were grateful and moved as well. And we turned and we walked back. And we're walking back towards the camp.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in that Standing Rock documentary on YouTube. And as we walk back and we enter onto the grounds, going back again past the sacred fire, down Flag Road, and I turn because Red Warrior Camp is right there. And I move to just face the camp, and I start with the butterfly comes through, and the Divine Mother comes through. The grandmothers come through to try and calm and soothe these red warriors because they're so angry, getting out of hand. You can't win a fight by fighting.
Mm-hmm.
So the youth went back. All these people went back to the sacred fire, to the 7 councils fire. And I went to the sacred fire and I said, isn't the youth going to come and speak? Aren't they going to tell you what happened? And, the announcer there at the time, he's like, whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stood there. I'm like, am I supposed to go back? Do I go back? Do I go back? What do I do? Where do I go? And so I started to go back with the youth and I start running because they're way gone, by now. And I start running. And no sooner did I start running than I tripped over one of those ties from a tent, running through all these tents and teepees, right, to get there. And I trip over one and I flat Stanley. I just fall flat. And I'm like, I got the wind knocked out of me, right? And I roll over and I'm looking at this guy and I was like, nope, not supposed to go. And a woman walks by and she kind of looks at me. You all right? And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I'm laughing and my eyes are watering. I can't breathe. And I look at my hand and my rattle has shattered.
Oh.
And there's little blue beads, the color of the water, inside. I had no idea what was inside.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and I start picking up these beads. And there's, hundreds of them in the grass. And it's impossible, but I'm saving as much as I can. And I'm putting them in my medicine bag. And I take all the pieces of the rattle. And I get back to camp. They're done by now. And I wasn't supposed to go there. My work was done. And I don't know whatever happened to the guy in the red jacket, to tell you the truth. Maybe somebody else could carry on that story. But my rattle broke. And all that was left was part of this handle. If you can imagine this cut straight across.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a piece that was left. And it looked kind of like a skirt, and this looked kind of like a body. And so I started to make another rattle out of this, out of the handle. And I carved a rainbow on the inside of the skirt. And it was a woman.
Mm.
And I tied a red piece of leather, had some, anyway, shells and things I made a rattle with. And then a friend came to visit me in my tent. Aline, I believe. I was like, oh, let me show you what I just made. And I went back in my tent to look for it, and it had completely disappeared.
Oh.
Completely gone. I still cannot find it.
Wow.
Well, not like I could find it now. I'm not there, but it completely disappeared. It was just gone. And so that medicine could no longer be used, see, because of all that it contained, all that it had done. At one point, there were some red warriors on a pickup truck. This is when we were first going out to the march. And the red warriors were like yelling at all the people. They said, where were you this morning? We needed you on the bridge. But see, the people had the heart with the youth, because the youth had the heart of the movement. The youth were going about this the right way, and they were guided by the wisdom of the elders. And so people, it's just like our discernment. What are you drawn to? Something that makes you expand, or something that makes you contract? Something that is full of joy, or potentially fearful? So they're like, where were you? But more people were aligned with this new way of being. And so that's where the support went. Now later that night, it was a full moon. I'm pretty sure it was the same night. And I'm standing in Rosebud Camp, actually over kind of where the Sani huts were. And there's 4 of us, and I look up at the moon. And I already knew they were present, and I could already feel them present. And they were present there at the youth march, because when I turned to that kid in red before I poked him, I was, they were waving, present, and pointing. And I looked up at the moon, and there was 2 rainbows. And on my personal page, you could see I just posted a rainbow on my cover page. Is a rainbow that is arcing away from the sun. Rainbows, like a sundog might go around the sun, but to see a rainbow arcing away from the sun was peculiar. And the longer I stood there and took pictures of it this day down in Arizona, a ship appeared. It appeared to be a ship. And so here I am at Standing Rock, and I look up at the moon, and there's 2 rainbow-colored discs over the moon.
Wow.
And all 4 of us saw it, because I said, look, star families are here. Mm-hmm. And we were all just, wow. So, do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions? How are we doing on time?
We're doing okay. We've got another 10 minutes.
What's that?
We've got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, I want to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story, and since I'm going to smoke tobacco, it's going to be a tobacco story.
Okay.
So this is organic tobacco.
Mm-hmm.
And I also put in lavender and sage and sometimes mugwort. And I learned this actually in Standing Rock. One of my neighbor campers was in a teepee. This guy, if you can imagine Sean Connery, he was French. His name was Gilles. If you can imagine Sean Connery, right? Beautiful man. And he's just covered head to foot in skins and leathers. Everything that he's caught and killed. Mountain man. Mm-hmm. And one day in his teepee, a few of us were talking. We're talking about dreams. And I said, I don't remember my dreams. Rarely, unless it's catastrophic. And it's very rare, few and far between. And he said, "Oh, here, try this." And so he pulls out this bag of tobacco blend that he made. This has mugwort. Mugwort will help you with your dreams. I was like, okay. And so I rolled a smoke with that. And I swear to you, that night, that next morning, I remembered 2 of my dreams, which just tickled me to death. And so now I make mugwort tea and I put mugwort in my smokes. And now this is organic tobacco. And I've got to say, I don't like the way it tastes by itself, which is why I put all the other stuff in it. It's more yummy. And the sage is very cooling to the lungs. It's nice. But I used to smoke clove cigars. And they're like cigarettes, but they call them cigars because they go out when you put them down. And excuse me for a sec. I wanted to quit smoking. And so some friends of mine rolled tobacco, organic tobacco. There's no filter. You know, filters take a long time to decompose. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. And so it takes a while and it makes a mess and you can't do it while you're driving. And so rolling your own cigarettes had helped me reduce my smoking a lot. And my Ayurvedic practitioner, my doctor, actually, I said, I want to quit smoking. And he said, smoke less. Because Ayurveda is not in your face. It's not always, and never, never. It's all part of your choice and your doing. So smoke less, please. And so rolling my tobacco allowed me to smoke less. And I've got to say, the addictive qualities, the need, the jonesing to have a cigarette is not there. I don't find it at all in the nicotine, or even though it has nicotine, I don't find those addictive qualities in this tobacco. And now I have smoked a cigarette that is also a natural cigarette, I believe American Spirit, with a filter. And I've got to tell you, the filter delivers chemicals. It delivers chemicals. I can taste and feel the chemicals. So that's why it's better to not have a filter at all. So that's my thing on tobacco. Plus, tobacco is a very sacred medicine. You can look that up and understand it, why it is always offered as a blessing and offered in prayer. When a plant is harvested, medicine is taken, tobacco is always left as thank you. The earth loves it. Yeah.
My lovely, you've got 1 minute.
1 minute?
Yeah, 1
minute. Okay, I do what I'm going to say. I'm going to say that everybody that stood at the fire, that beholded the sacred fire at Standing Rock, has a piece of that fire within them. They took that to all corners of the world, all places of the world, all the people. And so these fights, these protests, these protecting of the earth has gained momentum, has gained power, solidarity. It's inspired the world. It's inspired the women. Many of the women that spoke so strongly in the Women's March had spent some time at Standing Rock. And it was just a beautiful place of prayer. It still lives on. And I see an end. I see an end to the struggle. And I see, as declared in the Geneva Convention in the UN, the United States is supposed to be giving back territorial traditional lands to the traditional peoples of those lands. Many people don't know that. They don't want you to know that. But we know it now because there's no more secrets. So I envision that, I hold that, I see that. All public and federal lands going back to the stewardship of our Indigenous brothers and sisters with their guidance, their knowledge of how to live in harmony with the earth and one another. Let's put it on our drum. When they're drumming, you're sending up your prayers. Hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, hey. Hey ya, hey ya,
Okay, my love. Thank you so much for joining
thank
us.
you so much. Many,
I
many
just,
blessings.
you too. I would just like to show the audience, you guys, because I was blessed with this from a guy once, from a good friend.
Hold it still. Oh, beautiful.
Really beautiful.
Where did
And
that
this
come
as
from?
well, I think this is what you were talking about.
What is that?
You put tobacco in.
Oh, yes, you've got a pipe. A
Yeah,
chupa. Fabulous.
yeah, beautiful. It's a crow.
Ah,
Amazing,
lovely.
amazing. Wow. Okay, guys, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us as well. Do check out the YouTube channel Indigenous for future interviews. There'll be some more next week. And thank you once again.
Thank you. And if you want to see, I do have a Three Feathers public page where my videos are posted, interviews with Todd Medina, which tells a little bit of my history and background. And another
Yes.
beautiful grasshopper story from Standing Rock and the grandmothers, please. Would love for you to see that.
Could you tell us how to spell that, please, Raquel? Because I looked for it, but I couldn't find it.
My public page?
Yes.
On Facebook, it's Three Feathers spelled out.
Mm-hmm.
On YouTube, and I've got like 4 subscribers, I think, because I just started it. It's tricky to find. It's TF, which
TF.
is Three Feathers Twin Flame. So it's
Okay.
TF, Three Feathers Twin Flame. And I
Okay,
can't
I'll check.
remember if Twin Flame is 2 words or 1 word. Yeah, it's not very iOS friendly, and it's hard for me to fix on my phone. I don't have internet here, so
I'll subscribe.
yeah.
I'll subscribe.
Thank you,
Cool.
lovely.
Thank
Many
you.
blessings.
Bye.
Many blessings. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye, everyone. Thank you for joining. Please do check out my webpage on Facebook, Soul Starseed. I do readings and other things on that page, so please check me out if you resonate. Thank you once again for joining. Ray, StarLight, I'm your co-host and co-host, and I will see you next week. Bye, guys. Lots of love. Blessings.